All right. So, everybody, it is now 1:02. Greetings, welcome, and thank you for coming to our webinar today on conventional products that are good for you at the same price. We are Planetarians. My name is James Valenti Jordan. I am a strategic advisor with Planetarians. And Ale, also on the line here, is our founder and CEO. He'll be doing the majority of the talking, so if you don't like my voice, you'll hear his a lot. Um, but one last time before we move on, there are polls on the right-hand side of the screen. If you guys can participate in those, it'll give us some information to talk about later on in the webinar here um, about what particular problems you guys are facing and in what applications. But for today's discussion, we will be uh, talking through basically the problem that we see with the marketplace, how our company story ties into that, and then get into some of the specifics around the nutrition and the functionality for different applications. And then finally talking about the different story elements associated with sustainability and other claims. And then we've got a lot of time at the end for Q&A. So, being brief, I think most of us are here because we're aware of the 2050 challenge of 9 billion people and trying to feed them with the existing food infrastructure that we have right now. Speaking very briefly about that, we've got that ancestral problem of trying to stash away uh, nutrients for wintertime by putting those into animals because in a pre-globalization society, that was how we had put away food for the winter. The problem with that is that animals take up a lot of land, a lot of water. They generate greenhouse gases, etc. Long story short, it's not sustainable when we get to a 9 billion person population. So we have to look at how to walk back from that. So a number of folks in the industry um, have been working on that. You see a lot more plant-based introductions in 2017. Obviously, you've got a lot in the diet and nutrition sector, as you would expect with any major fad or trend. They're obviously going to turn up in diet and nutrition. Which is the interesting thing, though, is in 2017 you had bleed out from that sector over to desserts and yogurts. So you saw a lot more product introductions in the plant-based products sector than previously, and so this is indicative of a this is perhaps an early precursor, I should say, to a long-standing trend rather than just a fad, like some of our recent diet crazes. So, to talk about how we're going to tie that in our approach to the market, I have Ale here on the line as well to talk about planetarians and uh, give us more information on where do we go from here. So Ale, take it away.
Thank you, James, for the introduction and overview. My name is Ali Manchulianso, and I'm a founder and CEO of Planetarians. And let me tell you first about how we actually stumbled upon these ingredients that we are going to outline today. So 5 years ago, we were a small team of food scientists and culinary scientists, and we were formulating nutritionally complete meals. And we successfully sold over 1 million of those meals. Sourcing the new ingredient for our formulations, we stumbled defetted seeds. It's a dry matter left after oil was extracted from sunflower seeds. What caught my attention? They were extremely cheap. I remember I used to pay $5,000 for the metric ton of soy protein. Here I was asked 200 for the same metric ton. Wait, 5,200. I was very curious, how can I get that cheap source of protein for my cost optimizations? But the defected seeds were hard, like wood chips. They turn green if you start to cooking from there. It was very hard to isolate protein from there. But when we eventually developed the technology how to how to break the fiber and make the protein available, we thought that we might be stumbled something bigger than just the cost optimization for one company. Because if you look at the vegetable oil extraction plant, you will see that on every metric ton of sunflower oil seeds processed, they have 38% defected seeds as a byproduct. And some plants waste it, some plants burn it, some plants feed to animals. While our approach allows to turn that into the high protein flour. Making that, we can make the cost savings that we foresaw for ourselves available for many other companies, because we can offer 35% protein at the price of the all-purpose flour. Moreover, if we upcycle what's already grown, we don't need to consume more water and occupy more land. If we repurpose these byproducts from animals, we reduce the greenhouse gas emissions and making the protein affordable, so we can actually feed the growing population. So that's why we set our company on a mission to upcycle the defected seeds, all defected seeds by 2030, and make the protein available for people everywhere from Alabama to Africa. And now let me dive deeper into the ingredients nutrition. At this slide, you may see the digits where we compare ourselves with the market of flours present on the market. And you can see that we have 3 times more protein compared to all-purpose flour. And we have 2 times more protein than pulses or, for instance, barley spent grains. Frankly speaking, we have only one competitor. It's soy flour. But unlike the soy, we are non-GMO and allergen-free. Now let me show you how does these digits translate into the marketing claims. Because, as you know, there are some regulations about the claims of the good source of the excellent good source of the protein and fiber. And you might know that it's pretty simple. So it should be between 10 and 20%, and then you are in a good source, or above 20%, and you're an excellent source. But if you need to calculate it and apply it to protein, you have to adjust it for the protein quality. If you ever try to understand the quality of the gluten, the protein inside the wheat flour, you may notice that it's extremely low PDCAS, just 25%. So that makes it not a good source for protein. But I also believe that many of you play the game with matching amino acid profiles. And you know that mixing different sources, you can increase that. In our case, for instance, if you match the defected flour from defected sunflower seeds with wheat flour and add pulses in equal proportions, you can increase the PDCAS up to 85. It's higher than pea protein. So now let me illustrate my words with the real examples that we prepared for you. In the first example, this pizza. Pizza crust where we replaced 30% of flour, of the all-purpose flour, with Planetarians flour. And you see that we almost doubled the protein and doubled the fiber content. This is a simple math. Let's dive deeper into the PDCAS. So, but before that, you need to find the reference amounts because FDA calculated the average amount of the product that consumers eat per day. In any case, with the pizza crust, this is 55 grams. But this is for the dry, already cooked product, so we need to adjust it for the moisture, and we experimentally figure out that it should be adjusted for the 20%. Second, you need to calculate the PDKs for the mix of flours, and in our case 30% of some defeated seeds plus all-purpose flour. In our case it's 46%. And now a little bit more math, you can see that in protein, so if we get 30 grams of protein of flour as projected for our mix from defeated seeds, from all-purpose flour, you get eventually the total amount of protein in the mix, 12 grams. But when you adjust it for the 46%, you get only 5.69. Then you divide that for the recommended daily values, that means 50 grams per day, and you get the 11.38. That's enough to put us into the good source of the protein. Same math with the fiber, except that you don't need to adjust that for the PDKs. And again, 17.5% put us into the good source of the fiber. This is the example how we can turn the regular baked products into the good source of the protein and fiber. Let me give you an example with the burger buns. Here you also see that if you replace 30% of flour with the Planetarians flour, you double the fiber and increase the protein content. And this is enough, going through that complicated calculations. Here's the simplified versions. To get 5.8 grams, that is more than 10% of daily value. So put into the good source of the protein, same for the fiber. But I think that behind those the calculations, you have a question. Well, how does this flour behaves? And let me put here the video from the chef who already played with our flour and had a chance to compare with other flours. So let me start this video.
So my name is Anna. I'm a pastry chef living in New York City. I focus primarily on sustainable recipes. With the Planetarian flour, I made pizza dough and burger buns. I found like barely any taste. Like it was super subtle. It didn't really add any flavor of its own to the recipes. So that was really positive, I think, to build versatility in the product. Because with a lot of other like alternative flours, you find a really, really strong taste that it carries, and it's kind of hard to incorporate it into all recipes. And I found it easy to build a gluten formation even just using my hands, which is pretty impressive because with actually all other alternative flours, you're not really able to do that. And you just like mix and mix and mix and like add starch or add like a gum, you know, to get it to create that texture that you want. But with the 100 mesh, it really acted just like all purpose. So as I mentioned, I used it just for 2 yeasted doughs. But for this flour, I think really it can be used in pretty much all recipes where you would see all purpose and like swapped out for a 30-70 ratio. So yeah, I could in like cakes, cookies, tart doughs particularly. So therefore the Planetarians would also be applicable for pasta preparations. It looks like cake dough or cake batter or bread dough, but it's black. So, you know, like it's easy enough to recognize. And I think that I like the fact that it seems like something that everybody could really use easily.
Okay, thank you, Anna, for the review. Let's get back to the examples. And the next example, it's pancakes. You see here that we not so much increase in the protein content when you mix 30% of our flour, but that's enough to turn the pancakes into the good source of protein and the good source of the fiber. And what's important here, let me point, we calculated these amounts only from the flour. We didn't took into consideration the protein from the eggs, milk, or other ingredients, just the flour. So if you use, that makes these recipes to make completely vegan. But if you use other ingredients, you have even greater examples. Now let's get back to bread. Replacing 30% of flour with bread, we increase the protein 1.75 and the fiber. We get it as the good source of the protein and fiber. But here, let me point one thing. Just imagine for 1 second that we started to get enough protein from regular products like the bread, pizza crust, burger buns, and if we get it from there, we don't desperately need it for the protein from animal sources. We can treat those animal sources as for pleasure products like barbecue for Saturdays, but not necessarily for every day consumption. Same thing with muffins. So if you like to cook the cookies, pastries, it also increases the protein and becomes the good source of the protein and fiber. And if you live in Asia or where the noodles is one of the staple foods, or in Europe, where you can find very often pasta on the table, you will like the opportunity to turn pasta into the good source of the protein and fiber, still keeping the same costs. And here, let me share another video from the chef who played with our flour for noodles. Jimmy, please.
Hi, my name is Jimmy from Naughty Noahs, and we're piloting the sunflower defatted seeds from Planetarians. We applied it for our noodles, and research behind this is how can we increase the protein content in our noodles currently. The texture is still consistently great, and as far as the flavor is a slight little nutty flavor and very balanced, so not a very strong. I think the color is fine. I don't think it's foreign, especially for noodles. What's the one thing that I like about the sunflower defatted seeds is that it's utilized, like what you guys are doing, utilizing a byproduct and increasing the protein content to my application. That's like really awesome, and it's another step. Being a manufacturer or an ingredient manufacturer, taking a byproduct and making use out of that, really paying forward to the planet, and that's what we're aligned with. So that's what we really like and enjoy.
Thank you, Jimmy. We'll talk later about the sustainability. But before that, let me point into another point. It looks like we can make it, but will they eat it? And to remove this risk of the customer acceptability, we manufactured and launched chips made straight from defatted seeds on Amazon this spring. And we got growth 3 months in a row, 69% month to month. And let me give you the video with the feedback from customers who now we know ready to eat it on a repetitive basis. And listen what they say.
It does look like a brownie, but it tastes like a delicious spicy chip, and I love it.
I really can't believe that it has more protein than beef. But it does.
It had a nice airy texture, and it had a nice spice to it. I love it. I absolutely love it. Sriracha is excellent.
Barbecue is amazing. We really like it.
Very delicious.
Well, I can listen this for years, but let's get back to the presentation. And I believe that if you get the samples in your capable hands, you can expand the products beyond these applications that we drafted on this slide. But if you work in the marketing department, so let me show you how you can increase the sales using sustainable ingredients. First, you can attract more customers willing to eat plant-based, offering them the plant-based protein from your baked products. Then you can give them more reasons to eat your products often, twice, 3 times a week. And if you think about the launch and premium lines, you can do this keeping the same costs or charge more for the extra value. Now, a couple of words about the sustainability. We all know that animals are extremely inefficient means to make the food products. From initial 100% calories, we get back roughly 10%. While if we upcycle those ingredients for direct human consumption, we can feed up to 1.5 billion people from the byproducts that we already have on the earth. And doing that, we don't need to grow more crops, as we said, so consume more water, consume land, and unlike animals, we do not emit greenhouse gases. The last concern, maybe you can have in your head, what about the color? And initially we thought that we need to bleach it, but my son brought another idea. He just said, Dad, what do you choose? The conventional beer from the supermarket or the craft beer? And there's no brainer that I choose the craft, like the many active folks do this way. And you can use this distinguishing black color to separate your products from the ones that made from bleached, refined wheat flour. Let me briefly summarize what I've told you. So we have a great high protein flour with 35% protein in it. It has the same price as you pay for the all-purpose flour, and it's not allergen and non-GMO, unlike the soy products. You can attract more customers and convince them buy more often your products, and as well as position your products as the premium using our flour. And doing that, you reduce the impact on the planet and help to feed the growing population. Let me stop here and be ready to answer your questions. Jamie, can you help me with that?
Of course, Ale, thank you. While we discuss these questions, if you have any others, please go ahead and type them over to me. Looking at the poll data, looks like we had one participant talking about protein levels. I think we talked pretty well about how planetarians can help address that issue by bolstering, not necessarily replacing all the flour that's present. So. All right, let's see here. So Ale, you talk about a lot of lofty goals here, but we're only talking about sunflower defatted seeds. Are there plans in the pipeline for additional seeds in the future?
Sure, definitely. We played in our laboratory in the University of Minnesota with almost all oily crops, canola, cotton seeds. At this moment, we focus on the sunflower because it's the non-GMO and allergen-free. But we continue our work, and next year, I believe we can introduce extra products and expect some news in February from us.
Excellent. Another question just came in. Looking at our feedstocks, since we are using a a byproduct as our feedstock for this, what percentage of the world's sunflower meal do we have access to process as a Planetarians product?
Defended seeds, it's a commodity product at these days. So not only ADM, not only Cargill and Bunge sell that, so almost all the crush plants in United States, Europe, Latin America, and Asia, they sell it as a commodity. So we can buy it from them, or we can license our technology, that's actually what we are doing, to help them convert into the high protein flour. So I believe that we have access to 100% of available developed seeds.
Excellent, thanks. Let's see here. Another person just asked, what are the characteristics of the product when it's used at 100% replacement? Is it similar to other known products like all-purpose or other alternative flours?
You need to understand that defended seeds of sunflower, it's a gluten-free ingredient, and if you start cooking with them as the single ingredient, you will get something very dense, as you have with the almond flours. So that's why we suggest to mix it with other flours. We had good results pairing with the wheat flour. We had good results pairing with the rice flour. In our chips, we also pair it with the tapioca starch. So that the optimum that we have at this moment, 30%. That's enough to double protein to get the good source of protein claim without affecting the texture and the flavor.
Excellent, thank you. That's all the questions we have for right now. There's 1 minute left in our projected time. You know, we like to be cognizant of everybody's time and not try to run over. So, if you have any other, yes.
Let me remind that everyone can request samples. We have recently manufactured another run, so we're ready to supply you samples for your experimentation in the lab. And if you like it, we're ready to supply the more for your commercial trials. Just shoot us the email to the same invitation letter email that you then you got the link to the webinar, and you will get a reply from me or from James. And you can always engage us through our website.
That's right. Thank you, Ali. I almost forgot. Yes, and so those are going to be ready to go at the end of this week. So get your requests in now. We'll get them to you on the road next week, and we should have them right after Thanksgiving for everyone to play with before the holidays. So, in the absence of anything else, I think just want to thank everyone for the attendance today, and hope everyone has a great rest of their week. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.